everyone, and welcome to a deep dive you're not gonna want to miss. We're tackling a concept that's both ancient and incredibly relevant today. That's right, we're talking about the Dao. And to help us unpack all this, we've got some really cool sources lined up. Excerpts from the Dao De Jing itself, of course. A lecture by Dao Master Chuming Fu, who always brings a fresh perspective. And get this, a Western philosophical analysis, just to mix things up, get those different viewpoints in there.
Contrasting lenses can be super illuminating.
Exactly. So our mission today, if you choose to accept it, is to explore this whole idea of the Dao, what it is, or maybe what it isn't. We'll dive into its paradoxical nature and hopefully walk away with a better grasp of what it might mean for us, in the modern world.
So it's a journey that can really stretch our thinking.
It is. So let's jump right in. The big question, of course, what is this Dao anyway?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And both the Dao De Jing and Dao Master Chu emphasize this. You can't really define it directly.
So not a simple dictionary definition then?
No, not at all.
It's more like when you try to describe the taste of water, you just know what water tastes like.
Right.
But to put it into words is it's almost impossible.
It just is.
Exactly. And Dao Master Chow, he uses this great analogy.
Oh yeah, I read that one.
He says the Dao is like the X in an equation.
I like that.
You don't necessarily know what X is, but you see its effect on everything else.
So instead of searching for a definition, we're looking for the Dao's influence. Like its fingerprints on the universe.
Exactly.
I can dig it. But here's where it gets really interesting. This whole concept of emptiness.
Yeah, the void.
The Dao De Jing calls it the emptiness of a vessel, which is fair enough. But then it goes on to say, it's the source of everything.
Right, the wellspring.
How can something be empty and still be the source of everything? It feels like a paradox.
It is a paradox at the very core of Daoist thought.
Okay, so how do we make sense of this?
Well, it's key to remember that emptiness in this context, it's not nothingness.
It's
more like, think boundless potential. Oh, I see.
Pure possibility.
So not a vacuum.
No.
But like an overflowing well of creative energy.
Yes, exactly.
Waiting to be tapped.
And this is where it gets really relevant to us.
You think?
Living in the modern world,
Go on.
We're constantly trying to fill our lives.
Oh, tell me about it.
With stuff, activities, goals.
My to-do list is a mile long.
But what if true power comes from creating space?
From emptiness.
From emptiness.
That's a serious mind shift.
It is.
And speaking of mind shifts, if this Dao is the source of everything, how ancient are we talking here?
Ancient beyond measure. The Dao De Jing puts it this way. It might appear to have been before God.
Well, hold on. Before God?
And Dao Master Chu takes it even further.
Oh boy.
Saying it's the beginning of everything we can imagine. Even the idea of a creator deity comes after the Dao.
Okay, so try to wrap your head around this, everyone. We're talking older than the universe itself, older than time, than the very concept of a beginning. It's mind-blowing.
It really puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
For sure. So the question becomes, how do we, with our modern lives and packed schedules, tap into this ancient wisdom?
Yeah. How do we bridge that gap?
Right, because if the Dao is this timeless, elusive force, how do we actually live in harmony with it?
Well, the Dao De Jing actually offers some pretty practical guidance on that.
It does. Lay it on us.
It talks about blunting our sharp points, unraveling complications, tempering our brightness, and even bringing ourselves into agreement with the obscurity of others.
So is it as simple as chilling out, simplifying, not trying to be the loudest person in the room?
There's definitely wisdom in that.
Right.
But there's also a lot more to unpack there.
Oh, I bet.
Because if we connect these points to modern life,
Yeah, let's do that.
we see how much pressure we're under to always be striving, to stand out, to make things more and more complex.
It's exhausting.
And the Daoist seems to be offering a different path.
An alternative.
Exactly.
I like it. Okay, so then the Western philosophical analysis we have, it jumps into some interesting contrasts between how the Dao and Western thought view the world.
Right, different perspectives.
Like how we in the West often equate fullness with power, but the Dao points to emptiness as the true source.
That's a great example.
And then there's creation. The Western focus on a conscious creator, God figure, versus the Dao suggesting creation is more of a spontaneous emergence.
A natural unfolding.
Right, from that boundless potential we talked about. And let's not forget ambition. We're all about ambition in the West.
It's practically a religion.
Right, but the Dao encourages us to question whether ambition is always good. Or if he can lead us astray.
Some food for thought.
Big time.
It's not about saying one view is right or wrong.
Of course not.
It's about recognizing we're looking through different lenses.
But maybe, just maybe, there's something we can learn from this ancient Eastern way of seeing things.
Potentially a lot to learn.
So much to unpack here. But this is all pretty mind-blowing, you know? Mind-blowing. But how do we move from concepts to actually living with the Tao?
The age-old question.
Jerry!
I think it's time to dive a little deeper into that.
Let's get practical. Okay, so let's talk about how we actually live in tune with the Tao. It's all well and good to talk about emptiness, unsharpening points and all that, but how does that translate to real life? You know what I mean? Like on a Tuesday afternoon when you're drowning in emails?
Well, let's revisit those Dao De Jing verses we mentioned.
Right.
Blunt or sharp points, unraveled complications.
Yeah, I remember the words. But what do they mean in practice? How do we actually live that?
Think of it like water.
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 Yeah.
It's soft, yet it can carve through rock. It doesn't fight its way forward, it just flows around obstacles.
Oh, I see. So instead of stressing and pushing harder when things get tough, we should be more like water, adaptable, finding a way to work with the challenges.
You got it.
Instead of against them.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that analogy.
It's about finding that effortless effort that Dao De Jing talks about.
Effortless effort. That sounds kind of paradoxical.
It's about aligning your actions with the natural flow of the Tao, acting without unnecessary force or struggle.
So not forcing things,
Right.
but letting them unfold naturally.
Like finding the current in a river and letting it carry you downstream.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. But what about unraveling complications? My life feels pretty complicated most of the time.
Well, that's where the principle of simplicity comes in.
Right.
Dao De Jing encourages us to simplify our lives, our thinking, our desires even.
So less is more.
In a way, yes.
Okay.
It's about focusing on what truly matters. Letting go of the things that drain your energy and pull you away from your center.
Like decluttering your home, simplifying your schedule.
Exactly.
Maybe even your social media feed.
It all ties in.
You know, this reminds me of something Tao Master Cho said in his lecture about finding the Tao in the dust. It's like the Tao is saying that even the most ordinary things have a hidden power or beauty if we just open our eyes to see it.
Exactly. Shifting our perspective.
Seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary.
And that brings us to tempering our brightness.
Okay, yeah, that one's always been a little tricky for me. What does it even mean to temper your brightness?
It's not about dimming your light,
Oh, good.
but about using it wisely.
Okay, how so?
In the context of the Tao, brightness can be seen as ambition, the desire to stand out, to be recognized.
So it's not about not being ambitious, but about being ambitious in a way that aligns with the Tao.
Precisely. It's about finding that balance.
Balance between what?
Between striving for excellence and being content with who you are, where you are in this moment.
No more comparing myself to others on social media then.
It's not about denying ambition,
Right.
but about shifting your focus.
So instead of seeking external validation, check in with yourself and ask, am I doing this for the right reasons? Gotcha. This is all starting to make sense. But what about bringing ourselves into agreement with the obscurity of others? That one's a bit cryptic.
It is challenging, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think it speaks to the importance of humility
Okay.
and interconnectedness.
How so?
It's recognizing that we're all part of something larger than ourselves.
We're not alone.
Exactly. Our individual journeys are intertwined with countless others.
So putting aside ego and seeing everyone as equals.
Precisely letting go of the need to feel special or superior and embracing the beauty of our shared humanity.
I like that.
Think about it. How often do we try to separate ourselves from each other? Building walls instead of bridges.
Yeah, it's like we've forgotten how to just be with each other.
To connect on a deeper level.
You're right. And that makes me wonder, is that part of what the Tao is trying to teach us? To remember our interconnectedness?
It's a core principle.
To let go of ego and embrace the simple beauty of being human.
Absolutely.
So to sum it all up, be like water, simplify.
Right.
Be ambitious, but don't be a jerk about it. And
Yeah.
remember, we're all in this together. Did I get it?
I think you nailed it.
Awesome.
But remember, this is just a starting point.
Of course.
Living in harmony with the Tao is a lifelong journey of self-discovery and transformation.
Not a destination,
Exactly.
but a way of being.
A way of flowing with the current of life.
And it probably looks different for everyone, right? There's no one-size-fits-all approach to living the Tao.
The beauty of the Tao is that it's a path that's constantly unfolding,
I like that.
constantly revealing new insights and possibilities.
Takes the pressure off a bit.
And you bring your unique experiences and personality to the journey.
Makes sense.
It becomes a personal exploration of what it means to live in harmony with the Tao.
That's really reassuring to hear. But I have to ask, is there anything we're missing here? I mean, the Western analysis we have points out some potential limitations to Daoist thought.
Right. It does.
Like what?
For example, the Dao's emphasis on non-action and going with the flow can be tricky when faced with things like injustice or suffering in the world.
Yeah, how do you reconcile that with the need to sometimes take a stand?
To fight for what's right.
Exactly.
Those are great questions,
Those
and
are-
ones that I think a lot of people grapple with.
So what's the answer?
I think the answer lies in finding that balance
Balance.
between non-action and right action.
So not being passive, but choosing your battles wisely.
Exactly. Using your discernment, your intuition, your understanding of the Dao to guide your actions.
This makes me think about climate change. It's clearly a situation where we can't just sit back and let things unfold naturally.
That's a really interesting question, and one that probably deserves its own deep dive.
I agree. Maybe we can tackle that in a future episode. But for now, let's stick with what we've learned about the Dao so far. What would you say is the most important takeaway for our listeners today?
I think the most important takeaway is the realization that there's a different way of being in the world,
A different way.
a way that's based on harmony, balance, and non-resistance.
Okay.
A way that invites us to let go of our rigid ideas about control and power,
To surrender control.
and instead embrace the wisdom of the Tao.
It's like we're being asked to trade in our old worn-out map for a new
Gotcha.
one. A map that doesn't lead to a specific destination,
I like that.
but to a way of being, a way of flowing with the current of life.
Beautifully put.
Thanks.
And it's a journey that's open to anyone who's willing to take the first step.
I'm definitely feeling inspired to keep exploring, but I think we've given our listeners plenty to chew on for now. What do you say we wrap things up here and come back for part 3 to tie it all together?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our Dao deep dive.
Part 3.
We've gone through a lot. The nature of emptiness, how to live in harmony with this ancient force.
We've even talked about how it kind of challenges Western thought.
Definitely. It's been quite a journey. But before we wrap up, let's bring it all home for our listeners. What does all this mean? For someone listening right now, you know wherever they are in their life.
That is the big question, isn't it?
It's-
And like everything else with the Tao, there's no easy answer.
Come on. You can't leave us hanging like that. There's got to be something we can take away from all this, some wisdom we can apply to our everyday lives.
Of course. But it's less about a specific answer and more about a shift in perspective.
Okay, I'm listening.
The Tao invites us to see the world differently,
How so?
through a different lens.
What kind of lens are we talking about?
Imagine a lens that sees connection instead of separation.
Connection.
Yeah, and a lens that values balance.
Cover extremes.
Exactly.
Okay.
And recognizes the power of emptiness,
That emptiness again.
letting go, flowing with the natural rhythms of life.
So instead of striving, forcing, controlling,
Yeah, all that.
are we being asked to surrender?
Not surrender in the sense of giving up, more like surrender to something bigger than ourselves,
Interesting.
recognizing that we're not separate from the Tao,
We're a part of it.
exactly like a wave realizing it's part of the ocean.
I like that. We talked about how the Dao De Jing encourages us to temper our brightness,
Right.
not trying to outshine others. Is that part of this surrender, this blending in with the whole?
Definitely. It's
Yeah.
about letting go of the ego's need to be special, to be recognized, to be in control.
Letting go of ego.
Yeah, and finding strength in humility, in connection, in simply being.
This isn't just some abstract philosophy, right?
No.
This has real implications for how we live,
Absolutely.
how we treat each other, how we face challenges.
Exactly. Imagine a world
Uh-huh.
where everyone had this Daoist lens.
What would that look like?
A world where competition and aggression are tempered by cooperation and compassion.
Wow.
Instead of trying to dominate and control, we seek to understand and harmonize.
That sounds pretty utopian.
Maybe. But who's to say it's impossible?
True. It's a beautiful vision. But can we really change our thinking that much?
The Dao De Jing says, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
A single step.
So maybe if enough of us start taking those steps,
Yeah.
those individual shifts in perspective,
They can add up.
they can ripple outwards and create a more harmonious world.
So it starts with each of us.
It does.
I love that. It's not about changing the whole world overnight. It's about starting with ourselves, our thoughts, our actions.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe that's the key to unlocking the true power of the Tao.
Not as some force out there,
Right.
but as a living principle within each of us.
It's already there.
So much to think about. If the Tao is truly everywhere, how can our listeners start to see it in their own lives?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I encourage everyone listening to reflect on what we've discussed. Ask yourselves, what would it look like to temper your brightness in your life? How can you unravel complications in your day-to-day?
Good questions.
And maybe the most important question, how can you start seeing the interconnectedness of all things? That subtle hand of the Tao at work in the world around you.
Powerful stuff.
It is.
Who knows what answers you might discover? The beauty of the Tao is that it's a journey of constant discovery.
A journey that never truly ends.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up our Tao deep dive. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Keep exploring.